Why is it that I get more excited to see the same villains, heroes, and stories in a video game than I do in movie form? Maybe that's because a company like Insomniac knows how to write a well-balanced story that understands the character of Spider-Man and his villains. I thought it wouldn't be that hard to write Spider-Man, but evidently it took 3 movies to finally get him back to basics when it came to the Tom Holland trilogy. I still think Tom Holland was a good choice for the character, but the writing has not been in his favor. I think the writers of the Insomniac Spider-Man should be writing the next trilogy in the Tom Holland Spider-Man franchise, because right now the Spider-Verse series is the only one that seems to nail it with its writing. While I do think Insomniac would need to make some writing adjustments for a movie, I think they perfectly understand the character of Spider-Man and the responsibilities and consequences he has to take on. Now maybe this idea could fail because it's one thing to write a video game, but another to write a movie. And keep in mind that I'm talking about Peter Parker's Spider-Man. Their Miles Morales definitely isn't anywhere near the quality of the Spider-Verse Miles. What I admire most about these games is the fact that Peter Parker always puts being Spider-Man first. It's always the first priority above everything else, and oftentimes it comes back to bite him. It gives him this relatability that makes him everyone's favorite hero. Not only that, but they've managed to really balance his quips and serious dialogue, which has been a struggle at times in the recent MCU Spider-Man films. I hope to God that we never have to see another Spider-Man movie with Happy Hogan, because he was by far one of the most annoying parts of those movies, and it was one of the reasons Spider-Man did not feel like Spider-Man. I think it's so important that we see Peter Parker on his own, struggling to get a job, paying his bills, and balancing the life of being Spider-Man. It's also just as important to see him helping his community in ways other than being Spider-Man. Showing the humanity and kindness of Peter Parker is one of the key elements of the character. It's why seeing him go through so much pain is so difficult to watch, because we know how good of a person he truly is. It's an unfortunate thing for the character, but it's part of who the character is. There's a lot of pain associated with being Spider-Man, and it helps you sympathize for a character that hides all of this pain under a mask. Not only has Insomniac shown that they can tell a good Spider-Man story with far more compelling villains, but they can build upon their previous stories and progress their characters even further. If you watch the progression from the first Spider-Man game up until now, they've completely planned this thing out, which I don't really think they did that with Tom Holland's Spider-Man. It was refreshing to see a well-written story about our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man taking on such a dark persona that is completely out of character for him. The stakes felt much higher, and all the villains were given the attention they deserve. The Insomniac version of New York really feels like Spider-Man's territory because he's not accompanied by several other heroes. I think I'd rather see little subtleties they take to remind us that Spider-Man is in a universe of heroes without shoving it in our faces. Spider-Man is such a popular character, there's no need to throw in Iron Man or Doctor Strange to make more of a profit. The MCU isn't the only one at fault though. Sony also hasn't come anywhere near the quality of villains we've gotten in these games. I never thought I'd forget what it was like to have Venom as a true villain, but here we are. He's not a drunk-sounding symbiote that eats chickens.
Look at all the amazing things that we can do!
We are healed. Finally free.
He's a violent monster that you can actually be afraid of. He's also not Topher Grace, which we don't talk about that. I also know that whatever Sony is planning to do with Kraven will not come near what Insomniac has done with their version of the character. Kraven is a menace in this game and manages to make all of the other villains feel weak in comparison. All I want is good writing in terms of characters and story, but unfortunately we haven't gotten that in recent years with the live-action Spider-Man. I thought I loved No Way Home at first, but it's degraded over time for me due to the crappy dialogue, crappy Hogan, Ned Leeds, and the ungodly amount of green screens. But within that movie is a Spider-Man story, filled with pain and hope. My favorite part of that movie is where Peter is on his own in his classic red and blue suit as he soars through New York City as the one and only neighborhood Spider-Man. It's a great starting point for a new trilogy with endless potential, but I'm scared Marvel and Sony will mess it up with their need for wide appeal for general audiences. It's as if jokes and nostalgia bait are more important than good writing that doesn't rely on all that. Maybe Insomniac wouldn't make a great movie, but they at least understand the character more than the MCU writers at this point. I'd love to see them take custody of Tom Holland's Spider-Man because there's endless potential for a true MCU Spider-Man trilogy.